Who would have thought the person I trusted most in this world, my best friend, my sister in everything but blood, would be the one to steal everything I loved? But worse than betrayal was the truth I only learned after she was already dead. It was raining hard that day, like the sky was trying to warn me. Our wedding had been postponed 3 times due to the storms, but we finally managed to hold it at a small riverside venue in Sausalito. It was an intimate affair, just family and a few close friends. Emily, was the bride. 27 years old, walking down the aisle in a lace dress I had dreamed about since college. And my groom, Adam, he was my first love since we were 17. I still remember that exact moment I stepped into the aisle, holding the bouquet so tightly my knuckles turned white. My heart beat wildly, half joy, half dread. But the one thing that comforted me was her presence. Sophie. She had been my best friend since freshman year at Berkeley. We once promised that whoever got married first, the other would be the maid of honor. And that day, she kept her promise. She wore a pale ivory dress with her hair in a loose updo, an angel in soft light. But her eyes, something in them was off. She wasn't smiling with joy. She looked haunted. Like she was carrying a burden too heavy to hide. The ceremony went on as planned. Toasts, laughter, dancing. At least that's what everyone saw. But just before the first toast, I noticed Sophie had vanished from her table. No one had seen her leave. I checked the hallway, the restroom, and that's when I saw it. In the changing room, behind the half-closed door, Sophie was standing with Adam. And he was holding her hand. Not like a friend. Not like someone comforting a bridesmaid. But like someone who had loved her. Maybe still did. I stood frozen. My entire world collapsed in silence. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stared. My mind was screaming, but my body refused to move. When Adam noticed me, he didn't say a word. Sophie turned, her eyes locking with mine. And in them, I saw something that confused me even more than the betrayal, guilt, yes, but also sorrow. Deep, soul-crushing sorrow. I turned and walked away. The wedding continued. The toasts were made. The cake was cut. But inside me, everything had already died. After that day, I became paranoid. Obsessed. I noticed every call Adam ignored, every time he came home late. And Sophie, every time she visited, she seemed nervous, glancing at Adam like she couldn't bear to look, but couldn't look away either. Still, I kept lying to myself, she would never. She's my best friend. Until one afternoon. Just a month into our marriage, I caught them again. Not kissing. Not holding hands. Just sitting in a coffee shop a few blocks from our apartment. But the way Adam looked at her. And the way she avoided his gaze, like she was drowning in regret. I didn't wait. I stormed in, slammed a glass of water onto the table, and demanded, "What the hell is going on here?" Adam froze. Sophie started crying. And then, she whispered something that chilled me more than anything I'd ever heard. "Emily, you have to leave him. Leave him." I was his wife. I had stood beside him through everything, 7 years of struggle, loss, and love. And now my best friend, the girl who had once braided my hair before exams, was telling me to walk away. I slapped her. A hard, full swing across the face. She didn't flinch. Just smiled, a broken, devastating smile. And then walked away. I lost it after that. I searched Adam's phone. Tracked him. Screamed at him in the middle of the night. He only ever said one thing. "I'm sorry." And that was it. He packed his things and moved out a week later. No explanation. No goodbye. Just gone. I stayed in bed for days. Weeks. My body was numb. Food tasted like ash. I didn't return any of Sophie's texts. She sent one every day. I deleted them all without reading. Until the phone rang. It wasn't Sophie. It was the hospital. There had been a crash. A truck lost control near the cliffs outside Pacifica. A young woman was hit. Severe trauma. Head injury. Massive blood loss. Sophie. I didn't know why I went. Maybe to scream at her. Maybe, just maybe, to see her one last time. She was unrecognizable. Bandaged nearly head to toe. But her face, still the same. Soft. Beautiful. Peaceful, even in the coma. She never woke up. 3 days later, she died. And just like that, my story ended, or so I thought. But at her funeral, a woman approached me mid-50s, thin, holding a shaking envelope. She said, "Are you Emily? Sophie asked me to give this to you if something ever happened." My heart dropped. It was a letter. On the front, to the only person I ever truly loved like family. Inside was the truth. A truth no one could have seen coming. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. The letter inside was handwritten, familiar loops and curves I had seen 1,000 times. Sophie's handwriting. But this wasn't a birthday card or a silly note passed in class. This was a confession. Dear Emily. If you're reading this, I'm probably already gone. And I need to tell you something before you hate me forever. Maybe you already do. I didn't mean to fall in love with Adam. I swear to God, I never meant to. But what I did was not betrayal. It was protection. You were never supposed to know. But I couldn't carry the secret to my grave without telling you the whole truth. I sat down on the floor of my bedroom, knees to my chest, clutching that letter like a lifeline. It started a year before your wedding. I was coming back from work late one night. I had parked near your apartment because I had left my scarf at your place. On my way back to the car, I saw Adam. He was with someone else. A woman. Blonde. Red heels. They were arguing. He kept begging her to keep quiet. I stayed hidden. I didn't want to believe it at first. But then she pulled out something from her bag. A photo. Of you. She told him she'd expose everything unless he paid her off. That's when I realized this woman wasn't just some affair. She was blackmailing him. And she knew everything about you. My pulse quickened. I remembered the few times Adam had come home agitated, the occasional calls he wouldn't answer. I'd asked, and he always brushed it off. I followed her. That night. I had no idea what I was doing. But something about her didn't feel like just a scorned lover. She led me to a warehouse outside Oakland. There were men waiting there, 3 of them. Big. Quiet. Dangerous. I overheard one of them say, "Tell the husband, if he doesn't pay the full amount, the girl dies." I didn't understand. I thought maybe they meant her. But then I heard them say your name. Emily. That's when I knew something terrible was coming for you. I stopped reading, my eyes wide with disbelief. I whispered aloud to the empty room. They were going to hurt me. It made no sense. What kind of secret could lead to that? I confronted Adam the next day. He broke down. Told me everything. It wasn't just an affair. Years ago, before he met you, he'd borrowed money from the wrong people to save his father's business. He thought he'd paid it all back. But now, they wanted more and they were using you as leverage. He didn't tell you because he was ashamed. But I could see he was desperate. That's when I made a decision I knew would cost me everything. I offered to help him. To keep you safe. My breath hitched in my throat. I didn't want to read further. But I couldn't stop. I told him we needed to make it look like you left him. That he was no longer of value. That you had fallen out of love. So the threats would stop. But he was too in love with you. He couldn't pretend. He was too afraid to lose you. So I did the unthinkable. I made him fall out of love with me instead. Or at least make it seem like he had. I became the villain. I let you believe I was sleeping with him. I let you hate me. I gripped the paper so tightly it almost tore in my hands. But I swear, I never touched him. Not once. It was all an act. We met in public just to be seen. I held his hand so you'd catch us. I needed you to walk away from him. Because they said if you stayed married to Adam, they would kill you. I couldn't let that happen. My mouth went dry. None of this could be real. Could it? But Sophie, she had never lied to me. Not once. I'm sorry I didn't tell you earlier. But if I had, they would have come for me too. And maybe now they will. If that happens, if anything ever happens to me, just know. I did all of it because I love you. And I'd rather you hate me than bury you. Forever. Sophie. I was shaking. Tears rolled down my cheeks and dropped onto the paper, smudging the last line. I sat there for hours. Unable to breathe. Unable to understand how I had spent so many days cursing her while she had been silently saving my life. And the worst part? She had died, never knowing I forgave her. But what I didn't know yet was that this letter was only the beginning. There was still one person out there, one face from Sophie's story, who wasn't finished with me yet. I kept the letter in my drawer, folded neatly like a sacred artifact, but I couldn't sleep for days. Sophie's words haunted every corner of my mind. I had spent months cursing her name, and now I couldn't go a single second without hearing her voice. But more than the guilt, more than the grief, was the question. Who were the people behind it all? Who threatened to kill me? And were they still watching? The photo. The woman in red heels. The warehouse in Oakland. The threats. They sounded like pieces from a movie. But Sophie didn't make things up. And if this was real, then someone out there still had my name on a list. I knew what I had to do. I went through Sophie's belongings. Her laptop. Her journals. Her camera rolls. Anything that could give me a clue. That's when I found it, buried inside a folder on her desktop labeled Taxes_2019. A photo. Grainy. Dark. Taken at night. But clear enough. It was a man, tall, broad shoulders, standing beside a black SUV. His face was turned just slightly, enough for the camera to catch his jawline and the shape of his nose. He was handing a thick envelope to the same woman Sophie mentioned. Blonde. Sharp chin. Red lipstick. Sophie had followed them. And she took this picture. There was a timestamp in the corner, November 18th, 11:47 p.m. My heart dropped. That was the night Adam came home late, claiming he was out buying me a gift. A gift? Or paying someone off? I opened my laptop and started searching. Reverse image tools. Facial recognition forums. Even message boards full of amateur investigators. It took hours until someone finally responded. I know this guy. That's Mateo Rivers. He runs a private security company in Oakland. Real shady. Been accused of extortion a few years back. No conviction. Mateo Rivers. I repeated the name over and over like a warning siren. My fingers flew across the keys. I searched every article, every Reddit thread, every court record I could find. And then something stopped me cold. One article from 2 years ago. Mateo Rivers allegedly connected to missing Berkeley student. My screen blurred as tears welled in my eyes. The photo in the article wasn't of Mateo. It was of Sophie. No wonder she kept it hidden. According to the article, Sophie had once filed a police report against an unknown man who had followed her after a campus event. The report was later withdrawn, no further details. That was him. Mateo had been following her. Long before Adam got involved. Long before the threats. And now she was dead. I slammed my laptop shut, breathing heavily. There was no going back now. I had to know everything. Even if it killed me. The next morning, I drove to the address listed for Rivers Security Group, an industrial-looking building with tinted windows, located in a quiet part of East Oakland. I parked across the street and waited, heart thudding. At exactly 3 p.m., a black SUV pulled in. My breath caught. It was him. The same man from the photo. Same build. Same cold expression. He got out and walked into the building. I didn't know what I was doing. But I couldn't sit still. I got out of the car and walked straight to the front door. My palms were sweating. My legs felt like jelly. A receptionist looked up from behind a desk, fake smile plastered on. "Can I help you?" I almost turned and ran. But something inside me, maybe Sophie's voice, whispered, "You didn't come this far to run." "I'm here to see Mateo Rivers," I said. She looked confused. Tapped something on her keyboard. "Do you have an appointment?" "No. But he'll want to talk to me," I said. "It's about Emily Carter." She froze. Just for a second. And I knew. They all knew my name. After an awkward pause, she stood up and disappeared into a hallway. I waited. And then I saw him. Mateo. He walked out slowly, eyes scanning me like a predator sizing up prey. But he didn't smile. Didn't threaten. He just said, "You shouldn't be here." I clenched my fists. "You killed my best friend." He tilted his head. "That depends," he said calmly. "Which one was your best friend? The girl in the coffin? Or the husband who gave her up to save himself?" I couldn't breathe. He leaned in, whispering close to my ear. "You have no idea what game you're playing, sweetheart. But now that you're in it, there's no backing out." I stumbled out of the building like a ghost. The last thing I saw as I looked back was a man standing at the window, staring at me. Watching. Like I had just stepped onto a stage I never auditioned for. And suddenly, I realized Sophie didn't just die because she tried to protect me. She died because she got too close to something someone didn't want her to know. And now, I was next. The night after I left Mateo's office, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the couch in my apartment, lights off, phone in hand, staring at Sophie's letter again. My mind wouldn't stop spinning. Her words, Mateo's smirk, the threat hanging in the air like poison. "You have no idea what game you're playing." He was right. I didn't. But now I had no choice but to keep playing it. I started noticing things. A black car parked outside my building that didn't move for hours. A man in a hoodie following me through the grocery store, then vanishing when I turned around. Phone calls that disconnected after one ring. It was like being hunted by shadows. One morning, I found a note slipped under my door. No envelope. No name. Just 2 words written in thick, black ink. "Stop digging." That was the day I knew I couldn't do this alone. I needed answers. Real ones. Not from the internet. Not from whispers. From Adam. The man who started all of this. The man who never told me the truth. I hadn't seen him since the night he walked out. I didn't even know where he was staying. But I remembered something, an old contact in his phone, labeled Langley. He used to meet with the guy whenever he needed legal advice off the record. I searched the name. Turns out Langley was a private investigator. Retired. Shady reputation. But he owed Adam a favor. And that favor was my way in. I called him. Told him I needed to speak to Adam. That it was urgent. He didn't ask questions. 2 hours later, I received a text with an address in Mill Valley. A cabin. Remote. Quiet. Too quiet. When I arrived, Adam was already waiting outside. He looked different. Older. Tired. Like the guilt had carved wrinkles into his soul. "Emily," he said. I didn't answer. He motioned for me to come inside. I followed, wordless, keeping my hand close to my phone. The inside of the cabin was sparse. Just a table, a couch, and scattered papers everywhere. Surveillance photos. Notes. Maps. He had been tracking them. "You got the letter?" he asked. I nodded. "Then you know everything." I wanted to scream. "No, Adam. I don't." I know pieces. Half-truths. I know Sophie died trying to protect me while you let her take the fall. He flinched. It wasn't like that. Then tell me what it was like. He sat down slowly, rubbing his temples like he'd been preparing for this moment for months. I met Matteo in 2017. My father's company was drowning. We were weeks from bankruptcy. Matteo offered a loan. No interest. No paperwork. Just loyalty. I laughed bitterly. And what did loyalty mean? Giving them me. He looked up, shame burning in his eyes. They never wanted the money back. They wanted control. They started asking me to do things, give them information about investors, set up fake shell accounts, and then they asked for you. My stomach turned. Why me? He hesitated. Then, almost like he couldn't bear to say it, he whispered. Because of your mother. Silence. My heart stopped. My mother. I said slowly. He nodded. She wasn't just some small-town teacher. She used to work in government contracting. Defense. She had access to archives that people like Matteo wanted. I shook my head. No. No, she died when I was 12. She was just a librarian. Adam met my eyes. That's what she wanted you to believe. I staggered back. The world tilted. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my family, was shattering piece by piece. He continued. After your mom died, they couldn't trace anything back to her. But they believed she left files behind. Encrypted drives. Hidden passwords. They thought you might know where. I was a child. Exactly. That's why they didn't kill you. They wanted to get close. Manipulate you. That's why I married you, Em. At first, I didn't even love you. I was just supposed to watch you. My legs gave out. I collapsed onto the couch, shaking. He tried to reach for my hand. I pulled away like he was on fire. But I did fall in love with you, he said. Sophie knew that. She knew if I didn't let you go, they would kill you both. Tears blurred my vision. The man I loved. The friend I trusted. None of it was real. And yet, all of it was. Why now? She asked. Why did she die? Adam's voice cracked. Because she found something. Something they were hiding. She didn't tell me what. Just said it would end everything. But then, she disappeared. I covered my mouth to muffle the scream building in my chest. Before I could say another word, a sound broke the silence. Glass shattering. We turned at the same time. A red dot, laser sight, danced across the wall. Then another. Adam lunged for me. Shots rang out. Wood splintered. He dragged me down behind the couch as bullets tore through the cabin. I couldn't hear anything except my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. But in that moment, buried under fear, rage, and shattered truth, I realized something. This wasn't about love anymore. This wasn't even about betrayal. This was war. And I had just become the last piece on the board. Smoke. Gunpowder. Shattered glass. That was all I could smell when I opened my eyes again. I had no idea how long I had blacked out, seconds, maybe minutes. My ears were ringing and the room spun like a carousel from hell. But the first thing I saw was blood. Adam was lying beside me. Still breathing. But barely. A gash on his forehead. His left arm soaked in red. I crawled over, pressing my hands to the wound, whispering over and over. Stay with me, don't you dare leave me now. He looked at me, half-conscious, eyes clouded with pain. They are not done, he murmured. They'll keep coming. I heard tires screeching in the distance. More cars. We had seconds. I helped him to his feet, dragging, stumbling, barely managing to support his weight. There was a door in the back of the cabin that led into the woods. I grabbed Sophie's letter from the table and shoved it in my coat. Then we ran. Branches scratched my face. Mud soaked into my shoes. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold him up. But adrenaline kept me moving. Somewhere in those trees, I found the edge of an old hiking trail. I recognized it from when Adam and I used to come here years ago, back when everything was still a lie I could live inside. We made it down to the road, and by some miracle, an old pickup truck was parked nearby, engine still warm, keys in the ignition. Probably left by a hiker. I didn't ask questions. I got in, started the engine, and sped away. Only when we hit the highway did I allow myself to breathe. That was the moment I realized something had changed in me. I wasn't just a grieving friend or a betrayed wife anymore. I was a target. And I needed to become something else. A threat. I took Adam to a safe house Sophie had once used, a rundown studio apartment in the Mission District, hidden behind an abandoned bookstore. She had shown it to me years ago, calling it her panic room, back when I thought she was just being dramatic. Turns out she was being smart. There I cleaned his wounds, stitched what I could, and finally, he fell asleep. But I couldn't. I paced the floor, my hands shaking from something deeper than fear. Then I remembered the flash drive. Back in the cabin, under Sophie's name, taped to the underside of the table, I had found a small silver USB. I had pocketed it without thinking, like instinct. I plugged it into my laptop. It asked for a password. I stared at the screen. My brain blank. Then it hit me, Sophie's birthday. I typed it in. The screen flickered, then opened. What I found wasn't just files. It was a map. A heat map of activity tracking phone pings, movement patterns, and locations tied to a name at the top of the screen. Operation Halcyon. It looked like something out of a military system. Red zones, blue zones, moving dots. And then I saw it. A folder labeled Witness 12 Emily Carter. I clicked it. Photos. Logs. Transcripts. Documents going back years. They had been tracking me since I was 15. Every school I attended. Every hospital visit. Even my therapy sessions. They were waiting for something. Then I saw the final note. Activated, Phase 3 June 12th. Target to be eliminated post-decryption. My blood ran cold. That was today. I looked at Adam, still unconscious. I looked at the flashing cursor. And I knew. This had never been about Sophie. Or even Adam. This had always been about me. The daughter of a woman who once held the keys to a secret they were willing to kill for. Sophie died for it. Adam almost did. And now I was next. Unless I burned it all down first. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I just stared at that screen. The blinking cursor. The words. Target to be eliminated. And the name underneath it. Emily Carter. It didn't feel like my name anymore. It felt like a sentence. Like someone out there had written my ending already, tied a neat little bow on my death, and now they were just waiting for the final act. But what they didn't know was that I had just flipped. Something broke inside me that night. Not fear. Not grief. But obedience. I had spent my entire life being the good girl. The quiet one. The forgiving one. The one who gave people the benefit of the doubt until they shattered every last piece of her. Not anymore. That night, I became someone else. And if they wanted to kill that version of me, good. She was already gone. The first thing I did was wake Adam. He opened his eyes slowly, still groggy from pain meds, but I didn't give him time to ease in. We need to talk, I said. Now. He sat up, wincing. What did you find? I turned the laptop toward him. You tell me. His eyes scanned the screen. The files. The names. The folder labeled Witness 12. Then he said something I didn't expect. He laughed. Bitter. Hollow. They moved to Phase 3, he said. I thought I bought us more time. I stood still. What's phase 3? He hesitated. Then whispered. Clean up. Everyone who ever touched the operation, gone. No loose ends. Including you. Including you. He shook his head. I was always dispensable. But you were leverage. Now you're a liability. The rage returned. So what happens now, Adam? Do we run? Hide? Let them erase us like they erased Sophie? He looked at me. For the first time, truly looked at me, not like I was the woman he used to love, but like he saw the fire in my eyes now. The fury Sophie had left behind in her place. He reached into his bag and pulled out a phone. A burner. Black. No ID. There's someone who can help us, he said. I raised an eyebrow. Another old friend. No, he replied. An enemy. Her name was Natalie Quinn. Ex-MI5, now a whistleblower. According to Adam, she had once been part of the same web until she burned it all down and disappeared off the grid. If anyone knew how to dismantle what Sophie had uncovered, it was her. Problem was, she hadn't been seen in 5 years. Until now. Adam had traced encrypted traffic from Sophie's drive to a server located in Moab, Utah. Middle of nowhere. No cell towers. No cameras. Natalie had gone ghost. But ghosts still leave footprints. And we were going to find her. We left San Francisco at dawn. No phones. No GPS. Just cash, maps, and a pistol I didn't know how to use but held like I'd been born with it. Along the way, we passed empty highways, rundown diners, motels that smelled like mildew and old secrets. But everywhere we went, I felt eyes. Not human. Not obvious. But mechanical. Drones. Motion sensors. Cameras tucked behind stop signs. Like the world was wired to betray us. When we crossed into Utah, I finally spoke. Did you ever love me? Or was I just a mission? Adam's hands gripped the steering wheel. At first you were a mission. And then? He didn't answer. So I looked out the window and said quietly. Then let's finish the mission. We reached Moab under a blood-orange sky. The coordinates led us to an abandoned research station deep in the canyons, burned down long ago in what the internet called a lightning fire. But the inside told a different story. Scorched equipment. Bullet holes in the walls. A sealed vault, half melted, like someone had tried to erase it all with fire and fury. And then, a voice. I was wondering when you'd show up. We spun around. There she was. Natalie Quinn. Older than her last photo, but sharper. Colder. A scar ran down the left side of her face like someone had once tried to silence her. But she was still standing. She looked at me like she'd already read my file. Then she said, "You're the reason Sophie's dead." I flinched. Adam stepped forward. "Natalie, don't." But she raised a hand to silence him. "She loved you, you know," she said, eyes boring into mine. "Enough to die for you. And you kept believing she was the villain." I looked down. Shame. Grief. It flooded me all over again. "I know," I whispered. "And I'm going to finish what she started." Natalie narrowed her eyes. Then, finally, nodded. "Then come inside." And just like that, the war moved underground. Because what Sophie found wasn't just a secret. It was a weapon. And we were going to use it. Inside Natalie Quinn's bunker, the air was thick with dust, dried blood, and secrets. Maps lined the walls. Pins. Wires. Screens flickering with surveillance feeds from cities around the world. Places I had never been, faces I didn't recognize, yet they all somehow traced back to me. Natalie locked the steel door behind us. "You have 3 minutes," she said coldly, sitting down before a wall of monitors. "After that, I decide if you're worth keeping alive." I stood frozen. Adam stepped forward, placing Sophie's USB on the desk. She decrypted part of the files. But we think there's more. Buried deeper. Natalie didn't even blink. Of course there is. Sophie was smart. She never trusted a single password. She always layered them. She inserted the USB into a secure terminal. The screen glitched. Then came the login prompt. Enter key phrase layer 2. Natalie turned to me. This one's on you. I stared at the screen. Key phrase. What could Sophie have used? My mind raced. Our memories. Inside jokes. Code words. But nothing felt right. Then I remembered her letter. If you're reading this, I'm probably already gone. I typed it in. The screen went black for a moment. Then opened. Natalie raised an eyebrow, surprised. You were closer to her than I thought. The new folder was labeled Relic, Operation Halcyon Master File. Natalie clicked it open, and everything Sophie died to uncover spilled across the screen like a dam had finally broken. Classified audio files. Meeting transcripts. Bribery logs. Names of judges, CEOs, politicians, every one of them on Mateo's payroll. A full global network built not around money, but blackmail. They didn't want Sophie dead because she found something. They wanted her dead because she could destroy everything. Natalie zoomed in on one document. Her voice turned to ice. Here. This is what got her killed. It was a list. 26 names. All labeled witness. And number 12 was me. Emily Carter. I felt my chest tighten. My hands curled into fists. What were we witnesses to? She asked. Natalie looked at me for a long time before answering. Not what. Who? She pulled up a photo, grainy, distorted, enhanced frame by frame. It was from a security camera in Zurich. A man standing in a parking garage, handing off a small metal briefcase. The same man Sophie had photographed. Mateo Rivers. Except. Not him. It was someone else. Wearing a suit. And a government ID badge. Natalie enlarged the face. And I stopped breathing. Because I recognized it. It was my father. I stumbled back, dizzy. No, I whispered. He died in a car crash when I was 6. He worked in insurance. Natalie shook her head. He faked that crash. He worked for Defense Intelligence. He was one of the architects of Halcyon. I collapsed into a chair. The world spun. My whole life, every bedtime story, every birthday candle, every lie my mother whispered to protect me, it all came crashing down in a single second. Natalie's voice turned razor sharp. You were never just a witness. You were a key. A living failsafe. Your father embedded something into your medical records, some encryption he left for your mother to access in case anything happened to him. So that's why they watched me. No, Natalie said. That's why they didn't kill you. I felt like a machine rebooting. Sophie hadn't just died to save me. She had died to protect a code I didn't even know I carried. And now they wanted that code. Adam stepped beside me. Then we burn it all down. But Natalie didn't move. It's not that simple. You're still alive. They'll keep hunting you. Even if we leak this, there are people in every agency who'll bury it before it breathes. I stood. Eyes dry now. Cold. Then don't leak it. They looked at me. What do you mean? Adam asked. We don't leak it, I said. We don't go to the press. We don't run. We walk right into their den. Natalie tilted her head. And then? We let them try to kill me, I said. A beat of silence. And when they do, we take them down from the inside. Adam stared at me. That's suicide. No, I replied. That's justice. Because Sophie didn't just leave me a letter. She left me a purpose. And I was done being hunted. It was my turn to hunt back. 2 days later, I walked into a rooftop restaurant in New York City, alone. Hair tied back. No makeup. Simple black dress. No phone. No wires. Just a thin blade tucked under my sleeve. I had followed the plan exactly as Natalie and I designed it. We sent an encrypted message through the same channel Sophie once hacked into, knowing Matteo's network was watching. Inside the message was a single sentence. I remember everything now. Let's talk. 3 hours later, I received coordinates. No name. No threat. Just a table reservation under Evelyn Wren. That was how they operated, quiet, clean, precise. And now, I was playing by their rules. But I wasn't the same girl they thought they'd buried in Sophie's grave. The maître d' greeted me like I was royalty. Led me to the edge of the terrace where a table for two waited. Matteo Rivers sat there. Calm. Smiling. He wore a charcoal suit, silk tie, and the kind of face that never blinked first. Around us, couples laughed. Glasses clinked. Music floated in the air. But death sat at that table. And I was about to dine with it. Emily, he said warmly. Or should I say, Witness 12. I sat without answering. His eyes twinkled like we were old friends. You've grown up nicely. Your mother would be proud. My jaw clenched. Don't talk about her. He chuckled. Still emotional. I suppose that's expected. You were never supposed to know who you were. But your friend, Sophie, was it? She forced our hand. I leaned in, voice low. She didn't force your hand. She exposed it. He tilted his head. So what is it you want? Revenge. Closure. A deal. I reached into my coat slowly. His bodyguard, stationed 2 tables away, stood, but Matteo raised a hand. I placed a small USB on the table. This is everything Sophie found. Every file. Every name. Every secret. It's been duplicated. Distributed. Sitting in inboxes with time-release triggers. He stared at it. I smiled. This isn't a negotiation. It's a warning. Matteo's smile faded. He picked up the USB, studied it like it might explode. And what do you want in return? He asked finally. I want you to disappear. He laughed. Actually laughed. You think you can blackmail me? I leaned in until our faces were inches apart. No, I whispered. I already did. A pause. Then, his phone buzzed. He pulled it from his pocket. And froze. One by one, across the globe, his offshore accounts were being drained. Corporate holdings collapsing. Hidden shell companies exposed. Natalie's team had already begun the takedown. Piece by piece. He looked up at me, eyes dark. You made your move. I nodded. Now it's your turn. He stood slowly. Straightened his suit. And said. You just declared war, Emily Carter. I stood too. No. I ended one. Then I walked away. And this time, no one followed me. That night, as I stood on the fire escape outside Natalie's safe house, watching the city blink like a breathing beast, I thought about Sophie. About her laughter. About the way she cried when she thought no one was watching. She didn't die as my betrayer. She died as my savior. And I had finally given her justice. But deep down, I knew. This wasn't over. Because you don't dismantle a global conspiracy in one dinner. You cut off one head, and 5 more grow back. But now, they knew my face. They knew my name. And more importantly, they knew I wasn't running anymore. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks since the rooftop dinner. 2 weeks since Matteo Rivers vanished from the public eye, his empire crumbling, his allies scattering like roaches in the light. But not a single headline mentioned it. No arrests. No trials. No exposés. Because people like him don't fall in the open. They vanish in silence. In whispers. In accidents. And I realized justice doesn't look like handcuffs. Sometimes, justice is a shadow that follows them for the rest of their lives, making sure they never sleep again. Still, victory didn't taste sweet. It tasted like ashes. Because Sophie was still gone. And no matter how many files I exposed, no matter how many monsters I hunted down, I couldn't bring her back. That's why I returned to Berkeley. To her apartment. The landlord had kept it sealed after her death, waiting for someone, anyone, to come claim the contents. I used the spare key she had once hidden in the fire alarm. The moment I stepped inside, it hit me. The smell. Lavender. The exact scent that clung to every sweater she lent me in college, every letter she slipped into my bag during finals week. That warm, gentle scent of someone who always cared more about others than herself. I walked slowly through the small studio. A desk with stacks of journals. Her favorite mug, cracked but still intact. A Polaroid on the fridge of the two of us making ridiculous faces at some beach bonfire. I picked it up. And the dam finally broke. I sank to the floor and sobbed. Not the kind of cry you see in movies. No elegance. No music. Just pain. Ugly. Real. I cried for what she gave up. For how I doubted her. For the silence she endured so I could breathe. I cried until my throat burned. Then. I saw it. A notebook. Stuffed under the mattress. The pages worn at the edges. I pulled it out. Sat on her bed. Opened it. Inside were letters. Written but never sent. All addressed to me. Dear M. I saw you today, your smile is still too big for your face. I wish I could just tell you everything. But I can't. Because once I do, you'll never look at me the same. And honestly, that would break me more than death ever could. Another one. Dear M. I watched him kiss you today. You looked so happy. And I hated myself for what I knew. But I'd rather be the villain in your eyes than the coffin you cry over. I clutched the notebook to my chest. Every page was soaked with truth. And every sentence an apology she should have never needed to make. That night, I stayed in her bed. Curled into the corner. Surrounded by her scent, her words, her ghost. And before I fell asleep, I whispered. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. But I believe you now. And I won't let them erase you. The next morning, I made a decision. This wasn't over. Mateo was gone. But the system that protected him still lived. Still breathed. Still hunted. Natalie called me from a blocked number. You're being followed again, she said. I didn't flinch. Good, I replied. Let them come. She was quiet for a moment. Then asked. You really want in, don't you? I nodded even though she couldn't see me. I don't want in, I said. I want to burn it down from the inside. Natalie's voice dropped into a lower register. Then pack your things. You're not Emily Carter anymore. A pause. Then I asked the question that had been echoing in my head for days. Who am I now? She didn't hesitate. You're what Sophie died hoping you'd become. The first thing they did was erase me. Emily Carter, gone. My birth certificate, social security, driver's license, wiped. Bank accounts closed. Passport invalidated. Even my college records disappeared overnight. Natalie called it Ghost Protocol. From now on, she said, you don't exist unless we want you to. The words chilled me, but I didn't argue. Because I knew. The only way to kill a monster is to become the thing it fears. We spent weeks underground, shifting between safe houses, training facilities, and backdoor tunnels in cities most people didn't even know existed. Natalie was relentless. She tore down the girl I used to be. Emotionally. Physically. Until all that was left was focus. She taught me how to see threats before they appeared, How to move like smoke. How to shoot. How to lie without blinking. Adam stayed silent most days. I could see him struggling with the weight of everything, the guilt, the betrayal, the broken pieces of the life he once tried to build on lies. One night, I asked him, "Why didn't you tell me earlier? Why let me walk into a life built on secrets?" He didn't look at me when he answered. "Because you smiled like nothing could touch you. And I couldn't bear to be the thing that changed that." I didn't reply. Because he already had. On the 46th day, Natalie gave me a new identity. A name. A backstory. A purpose. Evelyn Marks. Born in Prague. Educated in Zurich. Works in private cyberforensics. Speaks 5 languages. None of it was real. And yet, it felt more real than the girl who once waited at a wedding altar in Sausalito. Natalie walked me through the next mission. A syndicate splinter, one of Mateo's old command nodes, had resurfaced in Buenos Aires. Hidden under a humanitarian non-profit. They were recruiting again. Rebuilding. Trying to recover what Sophie's data dump had destroyed. "We are sending you in as bait," Natalie said. "They'll sniff you out in minutes." But that's the point. I looked her dead in the eyes. Let them. Before I left, I returned to Sophie's grave. It wasn't much. A simple headstone in the Berkeley Hills. Her name. A date. Nothing more. I sat there for a long time. Then I whispered, "I'm not afraid anymore." And for a moment, I thought I could feel her there, just beside me. Smiling. Then the wind picked up. And she was gone. Buenos Aires. The city buzzed like electricity, chaotic, fast, alive. But beneath the color and music and heat, I could feel it. The rot. The silence behind the smiles. The cameras that didn't blink. Natalie's intel had been right. They were here. And they were watching. I walked into the non-profit under the name Evelyn Marks, with fake references, fake degrees, and a real fire in my chest. They welcomed me with rehearsed warmth. And by day 3, I had already spotted 3 guns hidden behind bookshelves. 2 guards who never smiled. And a man with a burn scar across his cheek who kept showing up without ever speaking. They didn't trust me. But they needed someone. Someone who could recover lost systems. Someone who looked harmless. Someone like me. They gave me a small office. On my second night, I stayed late, alone, pretending to work on network restoration. But really, I was uploading a silent virus Natalie had written. It would give us everything. Emails. Servers. IP routes. Names. But as I finished the upload, I felt it. A breath behind me. I spun around. He was there. The scar-faced man. He smiled for the first time. "You're not Evelyn," he said softly. "You're the girl from the rooftop." I froze. But I didn't panic. Because I wasn't Emily Carter anymore. I was what Sophie had built me into. I smiled back. "Neither are you," I whispered. Then I drove the blade into his chest. Quick. Quiet. Clean. He collapsed without a sound. Just like the ghost I had become. Back at the safe house, I handed Natalie the drive. She looked at me differently now. Not like a broken girl with something to prove. But like an equal. Like someone reborn in fire. She nodded once. "Welcome to the other side." And I knew. This was only the beginning. The data from the Buenos Aires op was deeper than anything Natalie expected. Buried inside layers of decoy files and fake identities was a master key, one that unlocked encrypted archives we didn't even know existed. Inside. The real blueprint of Operation Halcyon. Not just a network. Not just a syndicate. But a program. A decades-long initiative designed to embed intelligence agents into civilian life, trained from birth, molded through controlled trauma, hidden in plain sight. They called it the Orchid Project. And at the top of the candidate list, me. Emily Carter ORCID designation, Echo 6. I stared at the screen. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Natalie stood behind me, frozen. They didn't just track you, she whispered. They created you. My mouth went dry. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my choices, my parents, my past, began to collapse like a house of cards. The first journal entry from the program's log was dated March 2, 1998, the day I was born. Subject Echo 6 shows high compatibility. Will begin environment conditioning via surrogate, EC's mother, immediately. Surrogate. My mother. She wasn't my mother. I backed away from the monitor, nausea rising in my throat. Natalie tried to steady me. We didn't know, she said. Not even Sophie. If she had. I pulled away. Stop. Just stop. I walked out of the bunker. I needed air. Sky. Anything that wasn't made of metal and lies. Outside, the cold air hit my face like a slap. I sat on the concrete curb, shaking. Because I wasn't just a pawn in someone else's war. I was built for it. Raised in it. And everyone I had ever loved was part of the script. Even Sophie. Later that night, I sat alone in a small room above a forgotten bookstore in Lisbon, Portugal. Our new hideout. The walls were thin. The lights buzzed. But it was quiet enough to think. And thinking was the last thing I wanted to do. But then, my laptop pinged. It was from an anonymous email. No subject line. Just one sentence. You're not the only one who was lied to. Attached was a video file. I hesitated. Then hit play. The footage was grainy, shot from a hidden camera in what looked like a hospital room. Inside was Sophie. Hooked up to fours. Weak. Pale. But conscious. And beside her was Mateo Rivers. I leaned in. Mateo placed a hand gently on hers. You didn't have to go this far, he said. You were never supposed to protect her. That wasn't your mission. Sophie's voice was faint. But full of fire. She was never your pawn. She's not a machine. She's human. She feels everything. And I won't let you erase that. Mateo smiled coldly. You think love changes her fate? You think your tears mean anything? You were just another handler, Sophie. I froze. Handler? My best friend. The girl who swore she'd die for me. She wasn't just a friend. She was part of the program. The ORCID project. And she had known. Maybe not at the start. But at the end. She knew exactly what I was. And she never told me. The video ended. I stared at the screen. Everything hurt again. But this time, it wasn't just betrayal. It was grief buried in betrayal. Love twisted into programming. Memories rewritten by agendas. Because Sophie didn't just protect me. She trained me. Loved me like she was supposed to. Held me when I cried because that's what the file told her to do. And yet, something inside me still whispered. It was real. Some of it had to be real. Wasn't it? I didn't know anymore. All I knew was this. I was born in a lie. Raised in a story. And now, if I ever wanted to be free, I had to kill the authors. I didn't speak to anyone for 2 days. Not Natalie. Not Adam. Not even myself. I sat in that dim room above the bookstore, staring at the video of Sophie over and over until her voice no longer sounded like hers, until it became code, repetition, a program looped into silence. Handler. The word echoed in my skull like a curse. Had every hug been scripted? Every smile an assignment? Every night she held me while I broke down over Adam, was that in her training too? I didn't know what was real anymore. But maybe that didn't matter. Because I finally knew what I had to do. Not survive. Not expose. Not run. Erase. Burn every file. Every version of me they ever tried to build. Every lie Sophie died holding onto. That night, I sent one final message. It went out to 6 people. All high-ranking nodes in the Orchid network. Inside was a file called Echo Protocol, the last virus Sophie wrote, buried in fragments across dozens of devices. I had spent weeks reassembling it without even knowing what it truly was. Now I understood. It wasn't evidence. It was a weapon. A digital detonation. The moment they opened it, it would tear through their servers, erase every Orchid designation, dismantle their data webs, shred years of behavioral conditioning blueprints. It wouldn't take them down in court. It would take them down in silence. Like a memory being erased. And once it was gone, so was I. I closed the laptop, packed a single bag, and walked out the door. Natalie stopped me outside the safe house. "You really want to do this?" she asked. I nodded. "I don't want to be Echo 6 anymore." "What about Sophie?" I looked down. Then up. She saved Emily Carter. But now Emily Carter is going to save her back. Natalie held my gaze for a long time. Then, handed me a small slip of paper. Coordinates. One final location. The last Orchid archive. It's not on a network. You'll have to do it manually. How many people know it exists? 3. 2 are dead. The last is expecting you. It was a facility hidden in the Carpathian Mountains of Romania. No signs. No names. Just snow and steel. I hiked the last 3 miles on foot. The wind stung like knives. The cold cut through my bones. But I kept walking because this was the last page of a book I didn't write. Inside, it was quiet. Too quiet. Rows of dormant servers. Files locked behind glass. Like a museum built by ghosts. At the end of the corridor, a door. I pushed it open. And there he was. Director Lark. One of the original architects of Orchid. An old man now. Oxygen tube in his nose. Eyes pale blue like frostbite. He looked up and smiled. "Ah. Echo 6. I always knew you'd come back." I said nothing. He gestured to a terminal beside him. "That's the kill switch. The one your friend designed. If you upload it here, it ends everything. The whole program." I walked to it. Slid the USB in. Typed the password. Sophie's last password. No one owns her. The screen blinked. Processing. Then froze. Lark laughed softly. "You really think this ends it? There'll be others. There's always another system. Another project." I turned to him. Eyes cold. Voice steady. "Not if they are too afraid to build one again." He tilted his head. "So what are you now, child?" I looked him straight in the eye. "Free." Then I pressed enter. The ground shook. The lights flickered. The servers died. And with them, so did Echo 6. So did the girl built in lies. So did the story they tried to write for me. I walked out of the facility as flames began to rise behind me. No one followed. No one stopped me. There were no goodbyes. Because when you burn the blueprint, you don't look back. 6 months later, I was living in a quiet village on the Amalfi Coast. No cameras. No satellites. No ghosts. The ocean whispered every morning. The sun warmed scars no one could see. I lived in a small stone house above a vineyard where people called me Clara. Not Emily. Not Echo 6. Not anyone important. Just Clara. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't pretending. Some nights, I still dreamed of Sophie. Sometimes she was laughing in the rain. Other times, she was standing at my wedding, watching from the shadows, her eyes full of warnings she couldn't say out loud. But there was one dream that always returned. She and I on the rooftop of the safe house. A cigarette in her hand. A beer in mine. And she says, "They made you to be something, Em. But what they never expected was that you'd choose to be someone else." I always wake up crying. But it's not sadness anymore. It's memory. And memory is proof that she mattered. That we mattered. Even if the world will never know what she gave up. I do. And that's enough. I received a letter in the mail yesterday. No return address. Inside, a single photo. It was Sophie, taken years ago. Smiling wide, eyes closed, wind in her hair. The words written on the back were smudged but clear. "You survived. Now live." I placed it beside my bed. Next to a single white orchid. People ask me sometimes what I used to do for a living. I always smile and say, "Oh, just data stuff." They don't need to know the rest. That I once burned down a secret empire. That I once killed a man with a knife hidden under my sleeve. That I was raised inside a lie and walked out of it alive. That my best friend saved my life by making me hate her. And that I forgave her the moment I became free. Because that's what this was always about. Not revenge. Not blood. But choice. And for the first time in a long, long time, I choose peace. I choose to remember her as she really was. Not a handler, not a spy, not a sacrifice. But a girl who loved too deeply. And died too quietly. Sophie didn't steal my husband. She stole the bullet meant for me. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure her name never disappears in the dark. Because in the end, this wasn't her story or mine. It was ours. And we rewrote the ending. Together.